Hey, what's up everybody? Another update for you. This one's not so much about my broken wrist or my practice routine. This one's more about the gear that I'm using to get me through this. So if you're not that interested in gear, maybe skip this one, but this is for all you fellow gear nerds. So this is the trigger unit that I've been using. It's the D-Drum 4 SE. It's an older unit, but it's a really good one. I did some research online and they're hard to find anymore, and people are asking quite a pretty penny for them. Luckily I hung on to mine, and I'm glad I did. Even though I hardly ever use it, in a situation like this, it was perfect. So yeah, it's a very reliable unit, low latency. I don't really have a problem with double triggering, like a lot of the cheaper units. And it's got some great samples in it, some very realistic sounding drum samples. Versus a lot of the other ones that come with like some pretty over-processed samples, and that's cool too. But in my case, I wanted this just to sound like I'm playing like normal with both hands. So I picked a sample that was pretty close to my actual snare. And yeah, so, all right, one of the things that made this so useful, that my first priority obviously was getting the bass drum pedal to play a snare sample. So that was easy. I just plugged it into the snare input. But this also has a second input for the rim, because the trigger that came with it it's a dual zone trigger. It's got a trigger for the actual head, and it's got a rim trigger as well, so you can trigger rim sounds. That's how it's normally used. In my case, I used this. You can see this is coming from the snare trigger. It's actually got a separate output from the trigger for each zone. But like I said, I'm only using the one that triggers from the snare head. And so I ran the pedal into the first input, and then I ran the snare head trigger into what's normally the rim input. And the reason I did that is because now I can cycle through my different sounds, and it moves them both together. So, let me just show you some of the sounds I'm using. The one I picked for my main snare is, again, a pretty realistic snare. It's a little ringy for my taste. I wish I could throw a moon gel on it. What can you do? Actually, I could do a little bit. There's a decay setting. I got it down to 40. Now, if it's all the way up at 100, it's full sustain, and you can hear there's a lot of reverb and a lot of ring. I wanted to control that a little bit because I don't like that much ring. And this way my sound guy can add his own reverb. So I ended up dialing it back to about 40. Now, if I went any shorter than that, it kind of kills the main body of the snare. So here's 40. It's about as short as I could go. If I take it much lower, well, that would be horrible. Let's try 30. Still a little muffled. So I think 40 was a good compromise in the decay department. I did that on both, for both triggers, so they match. All right, the next sound, rim click or cross stick. Really good sound. Couple problems right out of the box. If the decay is all the way to 100, you hear this huge lush reverb. Again, sounds awesome, but I want my sound guy to have that control. So shorten that up. Okay, and again, made sure to do that for both samples, so everything matches. Okay, so I alternate. This has 5 different settings for sounds. So 1 is snare, 2 is rim, 3 is snare again, 4 is rim. That way I can just alternate between them without worrying too much about it. Now the 5th one, since that was the odd one out, I found a really cool, actually kind of over-processed snare sound. Gated reverb, fatso snare. So that's just been a lot of fun for certain songs, ballads, or any type of indie song, or, I think there's a Prince song that we do. It just sounds perfect on. So that's really cool. Actually, kind of makes me want to trigger my snare all the time just so I can use that, but probably not. Okay, so anyway, there's my sounds, my 3 basic sounds spread across these 5 settings. Okay. So if you happen to have watched any of the full concert videos I put up recently, you might see me cycling through those. You might also notice that I missed it a few times, and a nice ballad would start off. First rim click sounded like a snare, so I'd have to switch it real quick. Or the opposite. I'm supposed to come in with a hard-hitting snare, and it just sounds like a ballad. So that's been fun. Anyway, okay, so I got both triggers running into here. I got my different sounds set up. I did my best to match them in terms of all the settings that I changed on one, I would also change on the other so that they match. Okay. One of the things that I had to do was the rim click out of the box was really loud. Yeah, that was like louder than the actual snare hit, so that's not going to work. My sound guy's expecting the rim click to be much quieter, like normal. So I tried to find a good balance between the two. And then same with the Fatso snare, I had to turn that way down. You can see here it's at 60. If it was at 100, it would be way louder than the normal snare hit, which just is not realistic. Okay, so I got all my sounds balanced. Cool. Now there's one setting that I actually did differently for the kick pedal versus the snare trigger, and that is dynamics. So this unit's pretty cool. It has a couple of different dynamic curves, as well as you can turn the dynamics off. So now whenever I hit the pedal, it's full volume, no matter how hard or light I hit it, because I just don't have that kind of control with my left foot to be controlling dynamics. And I assume my foot would get super tired, just because I'm not used to using it for the snare all the time, which actually hasn't been that bad. My foot hasn't been getting that tired, but anyway, I don't have the control, so dynamics are off. Every hit is a full volume hit. Now for the actual snare trigger, I do have the dynamics turned on. So that's nice, gives a little bit of liveliness. There's certain songs where I play accents. Like for example, We Found Love. I got that snare part that's like, back at the back at the back at back at the back at the back at back at the back. So to try and pull that off, I had to put the accents on my left foot because that one's always full volume. And it kind of ends up working like this. So that's kind of cool. And then like Devil Went Down to Georgia, I just couldn't play that pattern. Can't really pull that off with my foot. So I end up just doing, you know, for the most part, and then I would fill in, you know, the inner beats. So that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm getting by. All right, and that's pretty much it. So you got both the snare trigger. Oh yeah, one thing. All right, I was putting a t-shirt over the drum and I turned the snares off because I don't want to hear my actual snare. I want it to sound, you know, even between the two. But the t-shirt was kind of a pain. It kept falling off. So I cut a circle out of it, took the head off, plopped the t-shirt down, put the head back on. So now it's just underneath the top. And I guess it's maybe a little louder than it was, but it's fine. And it actually feels better to play on the head again versus playing on top of a t-shirt. So yeah, those were my solutions to this whole wrist injury. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments, but I think that just about covers everything. This thing's been really useful. And I'm going to try to put in a clip of in here of, you know, me switching between the sounds and even forgetting to switch between the sounds. So, all right. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.
Running from the cold up in the rain, and I was born to be a fiddler.